All right, guys, this is learning objective 23, which is your last learning objective for Unit 2. I know you're so excited. I'm so excited. All right, so this is to describe the three types of elements in terms of their properties. So you have a metal and a nonmetal and a metalloid, which is also a semiconductor. Okay, so we can call a metalloid a semiconductor. Metals have a metallic luster, which means that they're shiny. These are mostly in the solid state. The exception to this is mercury, which is Hg. Fun element. Don't play with it. It'll like kill your brain cells. These are good conductors of heat and electricity. So metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. These guys are able to be flattened, which means that they are malleable. Malleable is the ability to be flattened. They are able to be pulled into wire, which means that they are ductile. These guys react with nonmetals, and they form salts. So these guys react with nonmetals. They form cations. Which are positively charged ions from the loss of electrons. So one thing to note on your periodic table is this really dark line right here. So this really dark line, that's kind of like a staircase that goes down. This is separating the metals, so everything on this side are metals, from the nonmetals. Now, if I look at this, again, if I'm looking at all of these guys, these all are all metals here, right? All of these are metals. And this even includes this bottom like chunk of the periodic table right here. These guys are all metals as well. So like you've got metals all the way down here, you've got metals all the way going across here. Everything's a metal. Okay. The only exception to this is hydrogen. Hydrogen is not a metal, it's a non-metal. It actually goes over here. But then we have this really, really small like triangle, right? So it's like this really, 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 really teeny tiny small triangle that has the non-metals. Okay, it's really important that you understand that most of the periodic table are metals. The majority of the periodic table is consisted of metals. And we have this teeny tiny section of nonmetals. Next, you have the nonmetals. So the nonmetals they have dull colors. They're not shiny. So they're not shiny. These are mostly in the gas state, with the exception of carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, selenium, bromine, and iodine. Now, bromine is the only other liquid on the periodic table. Okay, so bromine is the only other liquid. The other liquid being mercury. Mercury is a liquid. And bromine is the only other liquid that's on the periodic table. Everything else is either solid or gas. If they are solid, they are brittle. So they are not malleable or ductile. These are good insulators. Not conductors. These react with metals and nonmetals. Sometimes they react with themselves. So oxygen is one of those elements that actually reacts with itself. Reacts with metals and nonmetals. These form anions, which are negatively charged ions from the gain of electrons. Okay, we have the metalloids, and then we have the metalloids. These usually have a mix of properties. So these usually have a mix of properties of metals and non-metals. All of these are solids, are in the solid state. They tend to be brittle, but can be pretty strong. These are known as semiconductors. Which means that they conduct electricity under certain conditions. So if you've ever had your phone get too hot, the reason it's getting too hot is because the semiconductors can't conduct electricity under too hot or too cold of conditions. So all computers, all smartphones, everything has semiconductors that are built into the programming and built into the actual phone itself or the computer itself. Those semiconductors, when they get too hot, they do not conduct electricity well, which is part of the reason why your phone shuts down if it gets too hot. It will do the same thing if it gets too cold. It won't be able to work because the semiconductor cannot conduct electricity. So it only conducts electricity under certain conditions of temperature. Okay. So many are considered poisons. So arsenic and antimony are definitely considered poisons. One that's pretty close to there is phosphorus, but it's not actually a metalloid. But tellurium is also considered a poison. Antimony and tellurium are considered poisons. That concludes Unit 2 notes. So you're at the end of the unit. Yay! And again, this was learning objective 23, which is to describe the 3 types of elements in terms of their properties. So you have metal, nonmetal, and metalloid. You should be able to identify the properties of a metal, the properties of a nonmetal, and the properties of a metalloid. So for your test.